Back in 1999, I was going to college. I read a book, and it had a very impactful story that stuck with me ever since then. In fact, I was going to school to be a dentist. And when I read this book, I actually changed everything that I was doing and realized that I was actually going to school to haul buckets. Now, what I mean by that is this story. Basically, there's this guy. He lives in a village. The village is a couple miles away from the closest water source. And his job basically was to put a yoke on his back, hitched to 2 different buckets, and he'd make this hike every day. He'd fill his buckets up with water, walk back, and every day, all of his inventory was sold out. Everybody wanted what he had. Everybody needed what he had. He had an incredible job security. And if he wanted to make more money, he'd just simply make more trips. He would go back and forth as many times as he could, and every time he went back and forth, he'd make more money. And anyway, that's how he provided for his family. That's how the village got water. Well, another guy sees this and says, man, I want to take advantage of that because that guy's got perfect job security. Everybody needs his product. And so he fashions himself a yoke, gets a couple buckets, and starts making trips the same as this other guy. Just like the other guy, everybody needed his product. He's making a good living. But what he ended up doing is, instead of making multiple trips per day, he would basically make one trip, and then he'd take whatever extra time he had and start building a pipeline. I guess you could say he was working full-time on his job and part-time on his fortune. Well, one man was hauling buckets back and forth, making more money than his friend. He worked day and night, night and day. First hauling buckets to make sure his family was taken care of, and then working nights and overtime trying to figure out how to build this pipeline, overcoming the concerns that he had to deal with, the rocks in the ground. He spent the time doing that to build this pipe consistently and persistently over time. Well, a few years later, he finally finishes the pipeline, gets it to the village, and eventually turns on a spigot. Now at this point, everybody in the village can come and get as much water as they want. It's cooler, cleaner, fresher, better than the water he was hauling with buckets, and cheaper. Everybody could get it much more affordably. And he did this. He not only built an actual pipeline that was a pipeline of water, but he also built a financial pipeline, something that would pay him and his family and take care of his needs for the rest of his life. And that's basically what I realized when I was reading this book, going to college. I realized I was going to school to haul buckets. I wasn't building a pipeline, something that would take care of me and allow me to pursue my greater causes and higher purposes in life. I was basically working for money. And so basically what I did from that point on is I changed my career choice, and I've always tried to build pipelines. Over the last decade, every business venture I've gone into, I've tried to structure it in such a way. I had a software company recently, a marketing company before that. But every single one of these companies had something in common. It was an attempt to make a pipeline, and some of them were very successful, some of them were spectacular failures. But either way, my pipeline, what I was trying to do was create this pipeline. Well, as I started building a doTERRA business, when I got introduced to this, immediately went right back into, okay, this is a pipeline. It's obvious how this is a pipeline. We create a residual income, something that when we're done, we turn on a spigot and we can provide for our family for a long, long time. I notice, however, when I watch people build this business and other businesses that are in the network marketing world, that sometimes they're experiencing this pipeline peace of mind, and sometimes they're not. I also see people who think that they're building a pipeline, but actually are hauling buckets under the delusion that they're building a pipeline. And so one of the things you want to be careful of when you're building your business is just making sure that when you're building a residual income, when you're building this pipeline for you and your family, that you're engaged in the activities that are actually pipeline activities. And those are 4 things, 4 simple activities that if you're doing those 4 things, you are building a pipeline. The first one is finding, contacting, inviting, getting people to come and hear your message. That can happen when you create a names list and you start calling people and inviting them to a class, or when you want to go and share a one-on-one presentation. It doesn't really matter. Either way, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're engaged in contacting, inviting, finding people who may be interested in essential oils and natural forms of healthcare, in creating pipelines themselves. The second activity is the activity of teaching. teaching a class, teaching people how to use essential oils, teaching people how to become independent in their healthcare and their finances. That is another activity that you can do. The third activity is enrolling, and that really can be summed up in one word: follow-up. Are you following up with the people that came to the class, or that you shared the presentation with, or the people that you contacted and couldn't make it to the class but expressed interest? Are you following up with those people, and are you getting them enrolled as wholesale members, as IPCs, and enrolled in the idea of the business? The fourth activity is, are you duplicating yourself in another person? And if you're really good at the first three, and you're not doing step number 4, duplicating yourself in the people that you've taught, then basically you're still hauling buckets. You think you're building a pipeline, but actually, since you've never duplicated yourself in another person, you've never laid one pipe. You're digging a ditch, you think you're getting there, no pipe is laid, no water's flowing. And so you've got to duplicate yourself. Now, the thing that's interesting about step number 4 is that it is attached to the first 3. Everything you do in finding, teaching, and enrolling need to be so duplicable that another person can do them. So you're one of the things that's interesting about building a doTERRA business is that a lot of times we think that we need to be really super impressive. The interesting thing about this is we don't need to do that. The products are so impressive that really what we need to do is we need to find, teach, and enroll in a manner that another person should look at that and say, if he can do this, I can do this. That's the idea of becoming duplicable, duplicating yourself in another person. And as you do that, your organization will start to grow because they feel like they can do the activities you're engaged in. They start teaching that to other people, and then they duplicate themselves in them. When I build my business, when I teach a class, one of the promotions I give is if you sign up, if you enroll, and you enroll on loyalty rewards, so you have an order that's coming the next month, then I'll give them a free book. Now, the reason for that is because I'm investing in my pipe. I'm laying pipe right there. And every time I can get somebody to get on loyalty rewards, especially if they try the Lifelong Vitality, I know I've got water that's trickling through there every single month as a result of that. Now, I taught that principle to other people, and they said, wow, I got to recoup the cost of this book. And so what I'm going to do is I went to their classes and they said, anyone who buys a large kit gets the free book. And they didn't include loyalty rewards. And I just kind of looked at them and thought to myself, why are you hauling buckets? Loyalty rewards is what's creating the pipeline. Getting people to reorder your product is getting people to build a pipeline. Now, there are other things that people say all the time about that this is a scam, and so I'm not going to do it. And I go, okay, well, you just keep on hauling your buckets. Or they'll say, I enjoy hauling buckets because the trip isn't that far, and every time I haul a bucket, every time I pull a tooth, I'm making a lot of money. Every time I, operate on this person, or every time I'm an attorney, every billable hour, I'm making a lot of money. Well, that's fine. It's just that unless you're there drilling the tooth, doing the activities of an attorney, or whatever it happens to be, you're still hauling buckets. In other words, you can't ever step away and just turn on the spigot and go and pursue your greater causes and higher purposes in life. And so why is it that people don't build pipes? Sometimes it's just they're flat out lazy. I like to haul buckets because I can turn off my brain. Other times people don't want to build a pipeline because they can't find something that they can do that in. So, for example, opportunities to build a pipeline outside of doTERRA. Maybe it's, I want to get into rental properties, and people think, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to deal with leaky faucets and leaky roofs or tenants that don't pay. And so they don't want to go down that road of building a pipeline. Other people might say, well, I'm going to do this by building a business, but then you consider corrupt partners, investors who come and take your company from you. There's a myriad of things why people are afraid of building the business. And we've all know about the small business owner who has a dream of creating a pipeline, and then they end up working incredible hours. Look, I'm one of those people. I had lots of employees, went a year and a half without being able to take a paycheck from my own company because I was paying it to my employees with the attempt of building a pipeline. It's hard, it's really hard, and it costs a lot of money. And so that's another reason why people are afraid to build pipes. But when it comes to doTERRA, why don't people want to build a pipeline with doTERRA? Well, a lot of times it's the negative stigma that comes with network marketing. And they think, no, this is a scam. Or only the people at the top make any money in that. or this is just overpriced products because all network marketing are overpriced products and they're just selling an opportunity and I don't want to pressure my friends and I don't want to engage in this. I hate sales, all of these things. But the thing that's so great about doTERRA is that it allows you to build the financial pipeline without the risk of opening a business and dealing with the incredible amounts of stress of trying to make payroll every other week, which is what I experienced for years. So there's all sorts of reasons why doTERRA is a fantastic place to build a pipeline. And I'll tell you why I've chosen doTERRA for my pipeline. And after it's all said and done, why I chose to use doTERRA as my vehicle to build a pipeline. Number one, the cost to do it is almost nothing. I mean, compared to conventional business, building a doTERRA business is literally, it's your sweat, it's your effort, it's your ability to take rejection, it's your willingness to keep going, it's persistence. That's the price. And every other cost of doing it, the cost of getting oils and things like that is so menial in this that it's almost non-existent, because especially when you compare it to, you know, my experience in business in the past. The other reason I chose doTERRA is because this is a $1 trillion industry. One thing that's important about building a pipeline is you want to do it in an industry that can influence everyone. One thing I did not quite understand when I started doing doTERRA is the fact that this is not the essential oil industry. This is the healthcare industry. This is a $1 trillion industry. I mean, think about that. How many $1 trillion industries can you name off the top of your head? Power and energy, automotive, you know, cars, planes, transportation. I mean, healthcare is one of them. 1 out of every $6 is spent on healthcare in the United States. 1 out of every 6, which basically speaks to 2 really important things. Major inefficiencies in our current program, in the current healthcare situation, and an incredible opportunity with so many people who are dissatisfied with it. And so when I first got into doTERRA, I kind of thought I was getting into the essential oil business. I'm not. I'm in healthcare. I'm offering people a viable alternative to that. And as a result, it applies to every household, every person, everyone who wants to take care of their health, which basically is everybody. And in those ways, it's so easy to build a pipeline in doTERRA because it applies to everybody if you're willing to put in the work. Okay, so now what I want to do is get back to the 4 critical skills that you need to master: finding, teaching, enrolling, and duplicating yourself and others. So when it comes to finding, I think this is the hardest part, honestly, about building a doTERRA business, is you getting over the fear of calling people and then getting other people over the fear of calling people. Calling them up, hoping that they'll be interested in what you're doing, and in particular, the anxiety and fear that comes with calling somebody up and hoping that they're not offended that you called them because you're talking to them about something that is associated with network marketing. You know, that whole anxiety that comes from that. So what can you do to make contacting easy? Well, first of all, there are 3 doors. We call them the 3 doors of openness, okay? 3 doors that everybody has to walk through. The first door is, are you open to learning how to use essential oils as a viable alternative to healthcare? Okay, so first door, are you open to learn? That's it. Are you open to learn? Then door number 2 is when they come to a class, we're teaching them about the products, things like that, you know, teaching them how to use the products, the benefits of essential oils, how to use them to take care of your family. So the second door is, now that you've learned, now that you walked through door number 1, are you open to using the products? So door number 2, are you open to use? Then the people that are using, or the people that say, yes, I'm interested in using, the third door is, okay, now that you've learned, you're using or want to use the products, are you open to share? Are you open to share them with others? And ultimately what you're really saying is, are you willing to share them with others and start building a pipeline for yourself? That's it. Are you open to doing that? Now, most of the time when we call somebody up and ask them if they'd be willing to come to a class or learn more or anything like that, we have this fear and anxiety that starts to grip us. And the reason that that fear happens, or the uncomfortable conversations happen, or whatever it happens to be, it's because we're concerned if that person is interested in walking through all 3 doors. Are they interested in becoming part of a network marketing business? And that fear causes that awkwardness, and it makes it so difficult to call through a list of people. So tip number 1, if you want to make contacting really easy, really fun, focus on door number 1. That's it. When you're contacting people, you only focus on door number 1. So when I want you to think about, everybody's got them, think about someone on your chicken list. Someone that you would love to work with in doTERRA, but you're afraid to give them a call. The reason you're afraid to call them is because you're concerned about all 3 doors. Now, focus on door number 1. Is this person open to learning how to use essential oils to take care of their family? If you focus on just door number 1, notice how the fear leaves, the anxiety leaves, and you actually feel obligated to call that person. And let me tell you, when you get to the point where you feel obligated to talk to others, this gets a lot easier. Okay, skill number 2. Remember, 4 skills. Skill number 2, teaching classes or teaching other people about the product, including the product, how to use them, and of course the opportunity as well. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, I always use things like a tear pad. Where you basically are taking a piece of paper, passing it around the class. There are a number of different tear pads you can use. And I have a tear pad that I use that my intent with that, with using the tear pad, is that when we go through it, it's not about us, it's about the product. It's not about us seeming like a great presenter. In fact, I was talking to my upline and he was telling me, he goes, I actually feel like I get a better response in the class if I kind of stumble over my words and I don't do as well. And the reason why is because people think, man, if he can do it, I can do it. So when you teach a class, you want to keep it extremely duplicable. And that's why I use the tear pads. A piece of paper, everybody can do that. Everyone can pass that around. It's more duplicable. And if it's more duplicable, I'm laying pipe. And if I'm laying pipe, I'm building my pipeline to provide for my dreams. Okay? So for tip number 2, when you're teaching a class, keep it simple, keep it duplicable, and let the oils do the work. You've got to put oil on the people from the very start of the presentation till the end. They're experiencing the product. And I recommend using stuff like event flow, if you're familiar with event flow. But ultimately, the most important thing is let the oil sell. Okay, skill number 3, enrolling. Now, enrolling ultimately comes down to the most important skill, which is follow-up. Remember this phrase, fortune is in the follow-up. If you don't follow up with your people, somebody else will. One of my largest builders on my team, an amazing leader, when I called her up, I said, hey, would you be open to using, or learning about using essential oils for your family, something along those lines. I was focused on door number 1. And when I was talking to her, she goes, yeah, I use essential oils. And I said, oh, okay, well, what brand? doTERRA. Oh. And I was so depressed because here this person was, I was so excited to talk about, is already using doTERRA oils. I'm like, oh, okay, so are you building a business with it? No, I'm just using them. Well, have you signed up? No, I just get them from the person who told me about them. And I just went, oh, so doors number 1 and 2, already done. She was open to learning about them. She was using them currently, and all I had to do is ask, well, would you be willing to share them with others and build a business with me? I'd love to. Do not let those people go to a class and then you never take the time to follow up with them. You've got to follow up. Now, when you follow up, what is really important is mastering the skill of discovering and overcoming concerns. There are people that will come to a class and right at the class they'll sign up and they'll get the oils. Great. Then there's people who came to the class that saw the class, liked it, needed time to think about it, talk to their spouse or something like that. You need to call them back, follow up with them, and get them enrolled. Have a strong invitation. What my invitation is when I'm enrolling someone or when I'm following up with them, I'll just say, what did you think of the class? Get their feedback, and then I say, does this sound like something you'd like to take advantage of? Did you hear that? That's the phrase. Does this sound like something you'd like to take advantage of? And then if they say yes or no to that, then I'm gonna say, well, which of the kits on the form would best meet the needs of your family? And then you go right into it from there. Now, the thing that's important to recognize is that there are people who will have concerns. And so you have to, when someone expresses a concern, it does not mean that they're not interested. It means that they just need more information. And what you need to do is make sure that you can discover what the real concerns are and then have answers for those concerns that will help them see that this is an awesome thing to get involved with. Now, when it comes to discovering and overcoming concerns, basically the most important thing to understand is that there's basically a handful of concerns that always come up all the time. One of them is, I don't like network marketing. Okay, great, who does? Okay, so that's the first one. The number two one is, I don't have any time. I don't have the time to do this. And number three is, I don't have the money to do this. Okay, so those are the three that I always run into. So let me talk about how to overcome each of those, okay? Just real simple ways. The first one, I don't like network marketing. It's really important to understand the difference between doTERRA and network marketing. There's a huge difference. And if you can explain this difference to another person, they will get it, they'll understand it, and they'll want to engage with this. So when they say, I don't do network marketing, I don't like network marketing, one of the things that I say is, I don't either, because what they're describing when they say, I don't like network marketing, is the thing that I don't like about network marketing, the pressure that you have to put on people, the deception that comes with it, the people, the conventions where it's all about the cars and the money and the Ferraris they drive and all this stuff. None of that applies to doTERRA. So I understand their concern and I agree with it. So the first thing is make sure that they know that you're normal, that you share their exact same concern. The second thing is that the difference between doTERRA and network marketing is really clear. If you see it. If you see it, it's as clear as day. And this is it. When someone's in network marketing, generally speaking, they basically are selling an opportunity. They're not selling a product. They're selling an opportunity. And the purchase of the products are dependent upon the person's interest in the opportunity. In other words, if I'm not sharing the product with others, and if I don't have my financial dreams tied to this, tomorrow I'm gonna stop ordering their products because they're overpriced, or they don't work, or they're not worth it. That doesn't apply to doTERRA. Every time I've taught classes, trained teams, I'd say, just curious, if the opportunity was not attached to doTERRA, would you still buy the product? And the majority of the class, without hesitation, raises their hand and says, absolutely. Without an opportunity, I'm still buying this product. That's huge. That is the differentiating factor in my opinion. The second thing is every great company that has a great product, like doTERRA has, early on in their business, in the early business days, or in the early days of their business, they had to figure out how they were going to market their product. It's one of the first things you got to figure out. And you basically have two options. One is conventional means of marketing, which includes TV ads, radio spots, billboards, flyers, mailers, email, whatever, email campaigns, internet marketing, things like that. Or you can do it unconventional. And an unconventional method would be taking the money that would normally go to these types of activities and paying it to people like you and I to sit down with people kneecap to kneecap and teach them how to take care of their family using essential oils. That's unconventional. Now here's the question, the million-dollar question. After you've been through a class, do you think that it's possible to communicate to the public the power of essential oils and what they can do for you in a TV ad, a radio spot, a billboard, a flyer, a mailer? The answer to that question is no, you can't. And if this is not an option, then you have to go with the other option, which is paying that money that would normally go towards these activities to people like you and me. And because of that, because you have an awesome company with amazing product that chose the correct way to market their product, that is a lot different than somebody who creates some sort of network marketing compensation plan that's really good at paying out amazing compensations to the people who get in first, and then looking around for a product to stick into it to make it legal so it's not a Ponzi scheme. One is a company who chose the right way to market their product, and one is an opportunity who found a product to plug into it. That's just a completely different thing, and when people can see that doTERRA is just simply an awesome product, an awesome company that choose to take their marketing dollars and give them to people like you and I, that is just exciting. All right, now, the other two concerns I mentioned were time and money. The thing that's important to understand is that time and money are the same thing. So the way you overcome the concern of time, or I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, you overcome them the exact same way. So when I'm talking to somebody and they say, I just don't have enough time to do this, it's important for you to understand their life. So ask them about their life, and make sure that they know that you know how little time they have. Then you basically just say the following. You basically share the story about the person who hauled buckets versus the one who built the pipeline. Share that story. And then say this. we all have the same amount of time. Not enough. All of us have the same 24 hours in a day. We don't have time. But if we never take the time to build a pipeline, then we'll never have the time. And so it's important to understand that, for them to understand that if they never take the time to build a pipeline, they'll always be overwhelmed. The other thing that I like to do is after I explain that, explain the pipeline, explain the fact that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, and if we don't learn how to prioritize our time to make sure that that we take the time to start building that pipeline, we'll always be in the rat race, always overwhelmed, never have enough time to do the things we want. The second thing is that you could also say, I want you to look 5 years in the future. If you keep doing what you're doing now, do you see anything changing? And a lot of times they'll say no. And they'll see that when they used to say, I don't have the time to do this, they all of a sudden realize, if I never take the time to do this, nothing's gonna change. Now the same thing with money. So when somebody says, I don't have the money to do this, I'm gonna share with them the story about the man who hauled buckets versus the one who built a pipe. I share the experience, and then I'll say this. We all have the same amount of money, not enough. The difference is the people who have more are those who've learned to take the money that they do have and prioritize it in a way that they can start building the pipeline. If you never invest in the pipes, if you never invest in the materials to do this, then you'll never have it. And then, same question. I want you to look 5 years in the future. If you keep doing what you're doing now, do you see anything changing? And a lot of times the answer is no, or it's going to get worse. And maybe they'll say, yeah, I do. Things may change. But that's basically it. Make sure that you understand the difference between when somebody says, I don't have time, I don't have money. We all don't have time. We all don't have money. It's what we do with the time and the money we do have. Is it going into activities that are building a pipeline that are going to allow us to eventually do the things we want? All right, fourth skill is duplicating yourself in others. This is the important skill, remember. So the first three, finding, teaching, enrolling, and then duplicating yourself in other people. Now the way that I do this is when I first started building my doTERRA business, I immediately saw that it was difficult to duplicate myself in another person. I'd go and teach a class, someone would be excited, they'd be interested in building the business, and then they'd say, what next? And I'd be like, I don't know. And I couldn't duplicate myself in that person quickly. And so at that point, I actually took some time and created a tool called the Fast Track Planner. And the Fast Track Planner basically teaches people how to go through the 3 phases of their business: learn or prepare, build, and duplicate. So first learn the things you need to learn to prepare yourself to start building, and then duplicating yourself in others. And that's the tool that I use. It's a very simple tool. It's checkbox related. And even what I'll do is I'll say, look, even if you can just check off 1 box per day on the front of this Fast Track Planner, by the time you're done checking these boxes in 3 months, you're gonna see some significant revenue coming to you. So that's what I've chosen to do. I use a system that makes it very simple for me to duplicate myself and others. And the reason I use that system is because it makes it simple. It makes it duplicable. It makes it so that the people on my team, when I enroll a leader and I teach them the process that I went through, then I know that they're going to be going through all those processes. Then what I'll do is I'll schedule a mentoring call, a call once a week with each of those builders that I have, the leaders that I've established. I'll call them up, and what I talk to them initially about in the early days is how are you progressing through the Fast Track Planner? And I'm just tracking their progress, seeing where they are in the prepare phase, where they are in the build phase, where they are in the duplication phase of their business. And I can track all of that using the planner. And then what happens is then I'll say, now make sure that you're having this mentoring call with your leaders and that they're having it with theirs. And every single one of those phone calls is including not just how are you doing, how's your business going, but it's where are you at on your planner? Where's your progress, and how can I help you progress from where you are now to the next checkbox and progression in your business? So if I use the Fast Track Planner, then I know that everything I'm doing is duplicating and I'm building a true pipeline. I just want to say one thing in regards to this. I have seen people who have been very successful in doTERRA, and in other network marketing businesses that built a pipeline in the amount of money that they have coming to them. It feels like a pipeline, but their phone's constantly ringing. They never experience the financial peace that should come from a pipeline. And the reason why is because they never really duplicated themselves in other people. And all I can tell you is that I mentioned the different businesses that I started early on and all the different pipelines I've built in my life. doTERRA is without question the best pipeline I've ever created, because not only does it allow me to have the financial piece, but because I use the Fast Track Planner and the system I've talked about, the 4 critical skills, because I've done that, my phone doesn't ring off the hook. I actually have financial peace and peace of mind because I've built an actual pipeline. And so sometimes even people who have large ranks in companies like this, they've done it in a manner to where actually they're just kind of hauling buckets. The checks are huge, the buckets that they haul in are huge, but their phone's ringing nonstop, and they can never, it seems like they can never take a break from the constant onslaught because they haven't ever helped someone become independent from them. They've basically created this massive field of people who are dependent on them. And so make sure that as you're building this, build it in a manner that you're doing the 4 critical skills, including step number 4 of duplicating yourself and others. I use the Fast Track Planner to do that, and as a result, I'm not only getting the financial peace I want, but the peace of mind that comes from the independence that I've helped others get from me. I don't want to create an army of dependent people. I want to create an army of independent people. Independent from me, independent from their uplines, independent enough to go and pursue their greater causes and higher purposes in life. I want to encourage you to take the doTERRA business opportunity really seriously. I found a lot of joy in helping people find healing to their physical ailments. But there are a lot of people out there that are struggling and are suffering from financial ailments. And the cause of creating residual income, of helping people build pipelines, of helping them become independent not only in their health care, but their finances, is a worthy cause, and something that I found to be just as rewarding as helping someone find answers to physical ailments. And so I want to encourage you to get out there and build your own pipeline, and then find the joy that comes from helping others build their own as well.